going to present some project in these years, some new ideas we're thinking about right now. I call this Shanshui City. It's a different title from my original proposal. In Chinese, means mountain water cities, landscaping city, and so on. But also has a scenery feel to the city. It's not only trees and water. I have to start this from very early photograph, artwork I was inspired from. Early work by Cai Guoqiang, a Chinese artist. When he went to New York in '96, he made this cloud. And I think he was questioning about modern cities or modern civilization. He making, as an individual, he's facing this great, mega city and all these high-rise towers, and he's questioning where the individual is in these mega structures. And 10 years ago, after 9/11, architects around the world proposing new ideas for the World Trade Center. And this was my proposal in school. I was an architecture student. And I had no idea about the structure and all the theory, but what I think was maybe they just need a park. So I proposed a big park, and it's floating above all the towers. It's a very organic structure. I don't know the program in there. I don't know how can hold this building, and maybe the building will cast shadow in reality to other towers. I didn't know, but I think that was the first reaction when I see those great towers, those powerful structure. I just want something live. And this is probably 5-6 years later when I start practice, when we proposed for a competition in Canada for a high-rise residential tower. We proposed this twin tower proposal, and they were both twisting. So they're having this organic curve in this city, and you can see they actually making kind of urban space by giving different shape. And this was an interesting cartoon from a local newspaper when we released the design. And you can see, there's a dialogue actually happening between this new tower and traditional modern city, and the tower being constructed later on. And the building has all the balconies on every floor, and every floor is a standard shape, but we have a different rotation on different level. So the tower can make a very interesting shape, and the two tower has a different rule for rotation. So we can use the same floor but generate different shape for two towers. And here you can see all the balconies on every level. So this view from the top, we want the balcony to be twisted, and then we can introduce the sunlight into the balcony space. And the tower is actually located in a very important intersection of the city, but this city is actually a secondary city in Canada. It's a city near Toronto. all this secondary city in, I think, everywhere around the world, they trying to be look like a big city. Right? They following the typology in Manhattan. Like the first image I showed, the artist was questioning that image, but in many new cities, they actually very appreciate that image and they're copying that image in many cities around China, for example. But here we're trying to make a new identity to this new city, and people can use all the balconies. And by having two towers, actually people can look at each other from one balcony to another balcony. And this year, 2 buildings are finished. I'm glad that the first building was well received because the competition was only for 1 building, and they sold out the whole apartments in 1 day, so we got a chance to design the second one. And then by having 2 towers, it's more interesting because it become a twin tower concept. But twin tower, they're different. Not like many twin tower projects, they repeat each other. So I found some photos on the internet. I like this painting because it's capture the shape of the tower very accurately, because 2 towers have a different shape. Because the concept of the tower at the beginning was very simple. We just want to make something organic, different, more natural, more soft, not something too strong, too like a memorial of the money or power. Here, people using the balcony, and this is something we really don't like. Something we would do some new idea to against. This is actually a new town happening in Europe. That's very strange because a lot of a city like this happening in China, repeating the modern urban typology, making all these square towers, but this is actually in Amsterdam. So we were thinking, how about reverse this? So we don't treat architecture as a product or artificial volume or space, but more like scenery or landscape. So we propose something like this in this area, next to all those towers in Amsterdam. But this is very unusual in Amsterdam because everything there was very artificial and straight and flat. So, but here we propose a valley, and all the building, no matter what the function they all become unified mountains. And this is a view from the highway. And we actually bring a real mountain and a waterfall into this complex, so people can have a real nature in there. And here's a landscape in South China, part of South China. And in this area, we propose another building also look like a local mountain, but with a holes and a lot of terrace on the skyline. Here, the scale of the building is quite huge, and it's 800-meter long building, 100 meter tall, with 4,000 families living there. And here is actually an ocean front. So when I went there, I see the ocean. I thought they need a mountain, so that was simply happened like that. And I did a sketch, and we scanned this sketch into computer, and we draw it, and then the sketch become building. So the whole process was very simple, but in very emotional way, and the building being constructed. And here is a view from the terrace to look at the ocean. And this still in the first phase of construction, and the building will continue. So this building looks like a mountain. We call this a fake hills because it's not real nature, but people think that's nature, and people live in there. And here's another one. We also making some building look like part of the landscape, because a lot of the new developments now being built in the a nature context, because this urbanization is not actually only one building here, it's a new town being planned here. So I think the question is not if we should build things there, but how we build. Like how can we maybe combine the modern life and the nature together? So we decide to make a building continue from the mountains and contour lines of the site. And we have to build a building on different location and have a bridge, connect them. And again, every unit have a big terrace facing the lake. Actually, you can see from this image the tea field original plan there. And this landscape can continue into the building. So you feel the building it's again in between landscape and artificial. And we create some space like this where you can connect people with the scenery, with the space beyond. It's also under construction. And here's another one, look like, I don't know, mountains maybe. But we actually making a group of buildings, including hotels, residential, office, and convention center. And we combine them into a group. That's also interesting concept that individual building doesn't have a identity, but they have to work together to form some space in between them. And inside each mountain, we can have a different program and different space. This is a section, and the volume of the building is actually quite a big development. It's funny that this might not first time we talk about how integrated nature, landscape, and the building, but it's not happening a lot in the cities and in the large-scale buildings. Maybe in this big project, you can still find space like this, which is more quiet, more peaceful, and pointed. We also make other kind of, I would say, a building with a natural reference, but without trees. Like here, we make a desert. Like the landscape look like a waving desert, and this building is in Inner Mongolia, where they're building in Erdos. They're building a lot of modern buildings to make a new town, but we trying to reference the very original landscape, which is the desert, and we're making a building, a very abstract building. The shape doesn't mean anything. It's just a shell to protect internal space from outside, because inside is a museum, and we have some public space in there, and we have a sunlight and natural light coming in to the museum. Here's a Central Valley space, look like a Grand Canyon kind of space, but we have galleries in this on both sides of the valley and have a bridge connect them in the sky. There's another museum in Harbin. It's a very cold place, so we're trying to capture the idea between solid and the liquid. So this is a very long building with a lot of different space and sections in there. Again, the building is quite solid. I'm trying to bring more natural light from the above. Here's some photo during the construction. And here's another museum in South China where they have a more gentle mountain in the lake. And we proposed this building into the lake, and the building itself become an island. So that people can come to this island without entering any gallery, and they can walk freely on the roof or in the water. And so the whole building, it become a public park. But again, here we try not having a lot of trees. So when I talk about the nature, we're trying to think about more emotional idea about the nature, but not only greens. It's actually a lot of concrete. Also, building this opera house, and actually on the right side is a cultural center, two buildings together in the northeast, very cold area in China. And it looked like a continued mountain from the landscape, like Snow Mountain. But actually people can climb the mountain on the facade. So there's a public path around the building. And we create a lake in between two buildings, and two buildings are connected through a bridge. And I think this lake is very important to form this space. And two buildings become background, but not something very too much aggressive. And bridge and the plaza and the lake. So we're trying to make this journey for the public to become not only a space for public, but experience. Inside the building, again, we have a lot of natural light in there. Even in the auditorium, we bring a natural light in there. Here's a construction in the progress. You can see actually the park, we could design 3 buildings. That was a request from the government, but we say maybe 2 buildings are enough, and then we can preserve more nature around the building. So right now we are building only 2 of them. It's in Rome. We're working on a renovation project again. It's in West. It has a very different idea about the nature, and especially a traditional city like Rome. It's a very beautiful museum type of city, and all the streets shaped by the facade. So every building has very concrete shape, which not happening a lot in our building. So we're trying to make the building more open. So by doing this, the courtyard, the block in the middle, it's actually a building like this. There's one traditional building at the corner, and there's a old modern building there. We have to renovate. So I think if we say traditional building has a facade because they need that for the structure, so the facade has a structure purpose also showing the style of the building. And modern building actually using column and floor and slab, and they don't actually need to make a facade to have a kind of a style. So we simply take the old facade of the building and we insert a new living element into these slabs. Then the building, because we recess all the living unit, then we can have this kind of space at the edge of the slab, which we kept from the original structure. In this space, people can use for terrace, they can use for gardens and so on. So this building become blurred in some way. It doesn't have a facade. It doesn't trying to be new or trying to following the other building or conflict with other building. It doesn't trying to do that, but it trying to be blurred and then more honest to show how modern people live in the traditional city, because the people will use those space later on. Inside the courtyard, we making a lake to making a quiet atmosphere. So this become interesting because many projects we did was like 10 years ago when I proposed for the World Trade Center, was just instinct. But later on, when we look at some old idea about making architecture and city, you found in this painting, architecture and nature, they're living together, and people. And when it's become group, it's same. It's this is like traditional garden in Suzhou. It's become world heritage. But it's not only a functional green building. It has a poetic meaning and cultural meaning. And the green is not only about green, but it's about how people understand their life. They have thinking, and the music and the literature come out from this environment. I think this goes beyond what we call green building today. And you can compare these two images. So I think Asian Chinese architecture has some great concept which we don't realize today, because modern city are more about objects. And but in the image to the right, although all this nature are not nature, they're also artificial plant or the rock, trees, but they always combined with the buildings. Same as city. This is a Beijing city. You can see all the mountains and the water and all the parks. They all mixed into the city and buildings and the residents. And so this idea could happen in different scale, maybe. So what about mega cities we're talking about now, today? Maybe like this. It's like typical modern city in China, making towers. Very similar to the first image from Manhattan. There's actually a lot of modern city trying to be. And in this city, we propose a high-rise like this with a lot of gardens in the sky, and so to trying to mix the nature and the structure. And the structure doesn't trying to become a memorial of power, or doesn't trying to show the strength, but more about like organic lives. And another proposal in Taiwan, we're trying to develop this idea to form a sky community by connecting those gardens and space by corridors, because people need to use corridor anyway. So people we can transfer this corridor from only circulation space become a public meeting space in the sky. We can have shops, and we can have a lot of public things in the sky. And this is another one in Beijing, near the Chaoyang Park. So we, again, trying to make feeling, to make modern architecture feel more natural. It's another one. So we're trying different things on the large-scale buildings, high-rises in China, because that's most opportunities are, because we got a lot of requests to design big buildings, and I don't like the concept that people say they like nature, and so they hate city. So I think city is still good, because a lot of civilization, new ideas, new culture in the city. But maybe we can have a different image for the city. So in here, it's typical commercial development in China, hotels, office towers. But maybe we can introduce more different scale of public space in there, and to combine them with a landscape element. This like waterfall from 50 meter high from the building come down to the floor. This is a proposal for, you see a lot of green trees, but again, I hope this green has a more meaningful than green. It's a proposal for the Tiananmen Square, center of Beijing, and covered by forest. It's much smaller than Central Park, I think, but it's might be very important and very difficult space to realize such idea, because green also can mean different things to people. Can mean open and human. Can also mean a lot of things, more spiritual things. On the left hand side is a Chinese opera, national opera. We proposed to make a mountain cover the building. So we can stop the argument about the architecture style, and you can have trees and the mountain to climb, but at the same time you have opera in there. So that was a proposal we did 2006. We call Beijing 2050. That was a not real project. But at the same time, we proposed this renovation project to Beijing courtyard. We also call Beijing 2050. In the future, we thought maybe we can have a new structure in the old part of the city like this. They don't have a private toilet. It might look nice for the tourists, but not people who live in there. And it's a public space in between cars. So what we propose is a toilet, but it looks different from the old building, which I don't think is the key element of the old town, because I think the courtyard space, empty space, and nature and the life in those spaces are very important. So we put those small bubbles at the corner, and so they coexist with old building and nature. And I don't know, it's a good thing or bad thing. We realized the one before 2050, so it's not so futuristic idea maybe, because there's one owner of the courtyard. They love the idea and they really need a toilet, so we made one look like this. And it's very small courtyard. We have a toilet and a staircase in there can bring people up to the roof, like this. It's inside. It's only 5 square meters, very small, and and it has to be small because the scale, the context. But by having this shape and this material, we're trying to mix all the context into and reflect into this onto this object, so the object itself disappears. So that's our final, I think, image. Which I think is quite important to understand architecture from many old city or architect or garden. The key element is the space, like image, like this photo. We have a new building. It's on the one corner, and you have all different buildings shape this courtyard where you have a life and trees and birds and flower, and that's where the life happens, and that's where people feel happy or unhappy. And so everyone loves courtyard and this kind of space, but everyone don't know how we can find this feeling in the modern city. So I would say we are in this discovery path or trying to find the possibility to bring this philosophy into the modern city. And so what I was showing was some attempts, and we're going to try more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ma Yan-sung, for your incredible presentation. We have time for a few questions from the audience, but what I actually personally wanted to ask you is the way you create architecture is, in some sense, a somewhat literal but abstracted landscape as a philosophy, but to create a new type of emotion and identity for cities. What's fascinating is the project in Canada, as a Chinese architect, to be able to build a new identity for a city that was relatively unknown. What has been your experience so far with that project as a Chinese architect, working in the West?
That was the first international competition we were involved, and the reason we did that because we did a lot of competitions in China before that. 2 years, and we lost many, and we won a couple of them, and they don't build. So that was like accident. We saw this, we said maybe we make it, and because it didn't really make it very seriously at the beginning because we keep losing competitions. It cannot be serious about any one of those. So that might make the result become very much instinct. Like what it's about what you're thinking for a long time already, and you won't have a very brief answer to such question. I was thinking if I want to making high-rise in North America, if not the floating building, I would do something organic. So that was the first. And then we went, very luckily. And that actually brings something to us unexpected. I would say it's changed our image, and then from last year, we think we should work more project outside China, because I think now what we're talking about is more about difference between cultures. So I think not only us, I think a lot of people are curious how about we bring unique part of Chinese culture to a modern society or modern city. And I'm also curious to see what we can do.
Okay, great. We have time for 2 questions from the audience. Do we have anyone from the floor who would like to ask Ma Yun-sung a question? And if you would like to, please raise your hand and stand up.
With such extraordinary and diverse design, I was wondering if you could comment on the challenges you faced in acquiring the right building materials and right construction techniques, and how some of those challenges were resolved.
The tower project we realized the first in Canada was my first building project. So before that, I had only 1 year working experience, so I was nervous. I never built, the office I worked with, they never built such high-rise before. So I didn't know how to do it. But then later I found you don't have to worry too much because there are many people working on this one. And there are a lot of people can help. It's like a group of work. And then later on, when I proposed some super high-rise in China, I found when you bring new idea, a lot of excellent engineers or experts want to be involved in the project. And I find that might be the unique task for architect because a lot of other things architect not expert actually. But if we think architecture is part of culture or part of society, so something about that is unreplaceable, has to be carried by architect. So I think talking about experience, I'm still learning about those things. But I think as a young architect, it just needs time. So I want to find something I can do at this moment.
It's interesting because I was also reading that some of the engineers had helped you develop a new type of detail for the air gaps for the Canadian tower. But what's also fascinating, you've injected femininity into a very masculine profession. But it's actually wonderful to see how you've begun to dissolve the materiality and the exteriors into sculptural forms that are actually take extreme engineering and parametric design as a philosophy too. We have another question from the audience for Ma Yun-sung. And just please stand up. We have one over there.
I just wondering, you have all the unique and landmark architect, but how do you convince the client to buy your idea?
I can't. It's impossible. Actually, I didn't mention this first 2 years we lost a lot of competition, but I feel very lucky that I don't have to meet those people. So because we're all nice people. When you meet somebody, they need you to do something, you want to do that. So later. I think you just need to meet the right people. But the people, they fit each other. When they have a dialogue, they can communicate. Otherwise, just give up.
But thank you, Ma Yun-sung, very much. Let's give a round of applause to Ma Yun-sung's presentation. Thank you
Thank you very much.